layout of Clubhouse and especially to the Advaita Vedanta Satsang House as we figure out all these tweaking of the Clubhouse. So the ongoing sessions offered by Bindoji are classes on Bhagavad Gita from an Advaita perspective, but he's also using the other perspectives to highlight how the message is being conveyed from Krishna to Arjuna and the context. So with that brief introduction, I'm going to just turn off the mic and the hand raising when Bindoji is offering the class. And after about an hour, we'll open up the mic and hand raising for you to participate, ask questions, clarify. And Bindoji will be happy to answer those questions. So over to you, Bindoji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prakash. Namaste and welcome to all. Let me do my invocation. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartarabhyo Vamsha Rishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashikritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Guru Ratmeti Murtibheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Atmat Gurubhyo Namaha. The Gita Dhyana Slokam. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvandi Divyayistavai Vedai Sangapada Panishadai Gayanti Yam Samaga Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyandam Navidussura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. We were discussing the 38th verse where in the end of the class there were questions from SK and Jaikishan, which was some sort of giving me an idea that this has not been understood properly. Sukha dukkhe sami krutva labha labho jaya jayau tato yuddhaya yujyasva naivam papam avapsyasi. So that word, naivam papam avapsyasi, you never will this way, you will gain any sinful effect. Papam means sin or sinful reaction. Actions have got reactions. So papam is a sinful reaction to action, which is not according to the Shastra. Please understand that. When the action is not according to the Shastra says that there will be papam for you. And if you do the actions as per the Shastra, then you are gaining punya or means boon. This aspect, how it is different from what we are having our normal, our moral values and moral duties. Vis-a-vis the Shastra dictated terms of do's and don'ts, vidhi and nisheda. So these two things have to be understood very clearly by us before we even ask questions on that. On the earlier aspect, on the first line, nobody had any doubt. Equanimous to Sukha and Dukkha, Labha and Nashta, Jaya and Parajaya. On that equanimity, if somebody is doing that, Tato Yuddhaya Yujyasva Naivam Papa Mama Apsasi, the second line, when it is, if you engage in a war, yuddhaya, for the sake of the fighting. Yuddhaya yujyasva. The fighting has to be done for the sake of fighting, nor for sukha dukkha or labha labha, jaya parajaya. Means, action has to be done for the sake of the action. We are not engaging in action for the purpose of the action. In our life, we engage in our actions for the outcome of the action. The result generated out of the action is our prime concern. So what we do is, we are looking at every action with the lens of the outcome as the priority. So if the fighting is for the purpose of fighting, as a dharma of a kshatriya, he should not be worried about whether he is going to win the war or lose his own life in the war. But his duty is to excel in the knowledge of fighting when he is engaged in fighting. If he is engrossed with the outcome, he may not remember all the details of the war, how it has to be fought, what are the, methodology of applying, how the war has to be done properly as taught by the Shatra Dharma. Shatra Dharma means Kshatriya Dharma. That is the warrior's duty. So when we translate this to our life today, it is not different. It is the same. We are doing all the actions, but only thing is that we are what is the result? Keeping that in mind, we modulate and modify our actions so that the desired result is achieved. But what Krishna says here is that when you do that, you are not in the action. You are preoccupied with the result. Therefore, the chances that you may not perform as the requirement of the action per se, this can lead to either a failure or a misdoing of the action by itself, which will result in a different outcome. So what that is the different outcome is what is here indicated by the word papam avapsisi. It is not that we will be getting sinful result. Yes, it's a sinful result. If you are not successful 100% in the action which you are doing, your failure is considered as a sin. Now, yesterday's question by Jay, where he asked about the Jews and the Second World War. Now, had Jay seen this war in his dream or a dreamlike situation, would he have given any importance to it? He will not give any importance. While maybe the fighting will happen, either he may get killed or he may put others to gas chamber, etc. But when he wakes up, it is not going to haunt him, even though he may have the memory of it. But when he realizes that the waking also dream-like, it is impermanent, ephemeral, what happens in the waking will not affect us if we have the knowledge. But what happens is that when we do not have the knowledge, the waking haunts us every time we come into waking. But the waking doesn't haunt us when we go to dream or deep sleep. In those two scenarios, irrespective of what you have done in the waking, you will be having a good sleep or a dream which is different from the waking. So what does it show? It shows that even the waking is like a dream. It is not permanent. And we are here discussing what happens in the waking if we are to kill others in the gas chamber or get ourselves killed. This answer was given by Krishna in the earlier verses. Na jayate mriyate va kadachit. The truth is that there is no birth, no death. But if you believe there is a birth and death, then the rule is that jatasya mrityor dhruvam janma mritasya cha. Those who are born is bound to die, and those who are dying are bound to be reborn. So in any case, the cycle continues. When you are born, you are not haunted by the previous birth. When we wake up, the waking haunts us as long as we are alive in the same body. So where is the problem lying? The problem is lying in the memory resulting in this body, which we are abandoned along with the body when we die and take up a new body. Or if you, from the absolute point of view, it is not the body who we are. So whatever is there in the body is not mine. So neither the memory nor the actions are mine. I am not a doer. I am not an enjoyer. All these things have to be kept in mind before we ask a question about our day-to-day life problems. We don't take those questions with these details which have been studied earlier in our mind when we ask these questions. So keeping this in mind, now Krishna is moving to the next verse. Esha te abhihita sankhe buddhir yoge tvamyam shrunu buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahasyasi. So Shankaracharya in his commentary, he is bringing a introduction to this verse with a detailed commentary. Shoka moha apanayanaya laukika nyaya swadharmam api avekshya, which was there in the 231. Ityadyav shlokahi ukta natu tatparyena paramartha darshanam iha pravritam. That is, for the removal of grief and delusion, Vashoka Moha Apanayanaya Laukika Nyaya, the worldly line of reasoning was presented through the verse such as 231 onwards, considering your own duty as well. That is Swadharmam Api Cha Aveksha. That is the verse 231 where it started. But not as a principal purpose. That was not the purpose of the, Bhagavad Gita. Here the vision of the highest truth was revealed and the real subject was the truth. And that place where that verse number 231 to 235. Tatcha uktam upasamhriyate esha abhihita iti shastra vishaya vibhaga pradarsanaya iha hi pradarshite punaha shastra vishaya vibhage uparishtat jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. That is coming in 3rd chapter 3rd verse. Iti nishtadvaya vishayam shastram sukham pravartishyate shrotaraha cha vishaya vivagena sugam grahishyanti iti ata aha. What is that? Tatcha ukkam upasampriyate. And that teaching which has been done in about the highest truth from Gita number 31, 231 is now being summed up as stated in the next verse. Esha abhihide. Thus has been taught to you. That means the truth about the reality has been taught to you. For the purpose of indicating the division of scriptural subject matter, Shastra Vishaya Vibhaga Pradarsanaya. For once this division of scriptural topics has been shown here, thereafter the scripture dealing with the twofold discipline will proceed smoothly. So once you make the clarity here that this is regarding the highest truth and this is regarding the action in the Vyavahara, that is Paramarthika and Vyavaharika. Jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam iti nishtadvaya vishayam shastram. That is, the two-folded discipline will proceed smoothly as for Sankhyas for the knowledge of yoga of knowledge and for yogins, that means karma yogins, by the yoga of action. And the listeners too will grasp it easily owing to their clear division of the subjects. With this intention, Krishna speaks. So Krishna is very clear what is applicable where and how we have to see that. First, having told the truth that there is no birth, no death, there is no doership, etc. Then he comes to the actions. And the actions, he says that even in the actions, how you can remain without getting affected by the actions per se. As long as you have the equanimity to the outcomes of the action. Shankara is explaining how Gita is structured and why the earlier philosophical doctrine arguments were employed. Because in the Laukika Nyaya, it is a means, not the end itself. He explicitly demotes the argument based on Swadharma, honor, heaven, kingship, social consequences, etc., calling them Laukika Nyaya. Worldly reasoning. Laukika Nyaya means worldly reasoning. And what is their purpose? Their purpose is Shoka Moha Apanayanaya. That means removal of the grief and delusion which is gripping a person who is getting into the worldly action. They are therapeutic in nature, not philosophical doctrines. They can calm a warrior like Arjuna enough to hear the truth, but they are not truth by themselves. So what has been told is that preparing Arjuna to listen to the truth, which Krishna will take him from the basic karma yoga to karma sannyasa to the knowledge. What is truly prakrita? Paramarsa darshanam iha prakritam. That is the word used. That is the unambiguous way in which Shankara states the truth, the main truth. The real subject of Gita is vision of the absolute, the knowledge of the self and the destruction of the ignorance, which is the purpose of the Purushartha. Everything else is subsidiary in nature. And therefore, this aligns perfectly with Shankara's reading, where ethics serves knowledge, not the reverse. That the knowledge doesn't serve the ethics. Ethical living will prepare you for your mind to be prepared for receiving the knowledge. But having received the knowledge, ethics has no place in the knowledge. Now, why is this particular verse, 239, Esha Bihite, is a transition point or a turning point? Because Shankaracharya says that it is an explicit marker where the division of disciplines are spelt out very clearly. And from here onwards, topics will be methodically separated by Krishna in his verses. And confusion between the knowledge and action will be avoided. Clarity through Adhikari Veda. That is what Shankaracharya indicates here. He also is, in his commentary, he has also anticipated the Karma Yoga Sloka 3.3. Venishte Veditavvi. So that Sankhyanam or Karma Yogena Yogena. It is not a hybrid where the knowledge and the action will work in samuchaya or in concomitance. By invoking this verse 3.3, Shankaracharya preempts a common mistake that Gita does not teach a single mixed path, but he says that it teaches two nishtas. Jnana Yoga for those who are inclined towards knowledge, and Karma Yoga who are inclined towards action. So the earlier worldly arguments belongs to Karma Yoga as preparation, not to Jnana Yoga as realization. Clear division helps a teacher to proceed smoothly. That is why Krishna has made clear distinction between karma and jnana. And that helps also the listener to grasp without confusion. So Arjuna to be prepared was Krishna's main purpose. So if he confuses Arjuna, then his purpose is defeated. And if confusion has reigned over Arjuna, it will lead to him doing wrong practice and wrong expectation and delayed liberation. Thus, the structure itself will become a form of compassion by Krishna's division of the two nishtas, jnana nishta and karma nishta. So Gita first readies the mind of the worldly with the worldly reason, then liberates the listener by the truth, and never allows the two to be confused. Please keep this in mind. Never get confused with the Paramarthika level and Vyavaharika level. When Krishna talks from the absolute point of view, that should not be mixed up with verses which are from the transactional or empirical form of world. This is the introduction which Shankaracharya gives to the verse number 39. Esha te abhihite sankhye buddhir yoge tvimimam shrunu. Buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahasyasi. Esha. All this means the earlier teachings, what or earlier sayings which Krishna has said. Te means to you. Abhihita means which has been described. Sankhya, by the analytical study of knowledge. Buddhir yoga, that means Buddhi means intellect, intelligence. Yoga means in work without fruitive result or result for fruits of action. That is what yoga is. But imam shrunu, this you have to hear before you proceed anything further. Buddhya yukta yaya partha. When you are yoked with intelligence, or when your intelligence is dovetailed into your action, or not in the action, in your logic of yaya, which, O son of Kunti, karma bandham prahasyasi. You can be released from the bondage of karma bandha. The karma will not become a bandhanam for you, or karma will never become a bondage. If you use your intelligence, the yukta means buddhi yukta. That is means along with your intelligence when you do the action. The action should be understood properly. Please understand that. This is exactly what I was telling in the beginning. We have to analyze our actions before we enter into an action. We are not worried about the outcome of the action, because outcome of the action is mandatory for every action. But action, if we are not analyzing properly and entering into an action, what happens is that the action can be confusing a ordinary mind. What is right, what is wrong, what will happen, what will not happen, all these things can be confusing. So the knowledge is very important. And that knowledge of action, I'm not talking about the knowledge of the truth. Knowledge of the action along with the intellect, buddhi yukta. So this is what Krishna is telling. So the verse translates like this. This which has been taught to you is the wisdom concerning Sankhya. Now listen to the wisdom concerning yoga, endowed with which, Arjuna, you shall cast off the bonds of action. Very, very clear, Krishna. Now let us look into the commentary by Shankaracharya. Esha te tubhyam abhihita means ukta. Sankhye paramartha vastu viveka vishaya buddhi. So Sankhya, he is translating as, or he is commenting what is Sankhya as paramartha vastu viveka vishaya buddhi. Or in other words, jnanam. Sakshat shoka moha adi samsara hetu dosha nivritti karanam. And the jnanam is the means, karanam, or the method, or the instrument. For what? Sakshat, instantaneously or immediate. Shoka moha adi, like the discrimination, or shoka moha is the aspect of grief and delusion, which causes samsara hetu. Adi are shoka moha adi are the samsara hetu, and that is the dosha. Samsara hetu means causes for the mundane life, and that is the defect. Dosha nivritti karanam. So that defect can be remedied only by jnanam, knowledge. And that what knowledge? The paramartha vastu viveka vishaya buddhi. The knowledge about the reality and seeing the viveka is the discerning between the right, the real and the unreal. Vishaye means in all the content or context. So this understanding which has been taught to you is the knowledge, which will help you instantaneously to be freed from the delusions of grief, etc., which are the causes for the mundane problems of our day-to-day life. Yoge tu tat prapti upaye nisangataya dvanda prahana purvakam Ishvara aradhana arthe karma yoge karma anushtane samadhi yoge cha imam anandaram eva uchyamanam buddhim shrunu. But in the context of yoge, that is, in the means of attaining that knowledge through non-attachment, preceded by abandonment of the pair of opposites, for the purpose of worship of Ishvara in the case of devotion, or practice of action as karma yoga, or samadhi yoga for the purpose of yoga, samadhi. Now listen. This very understanding which is about to be stated next, from the next verse onwards, which will release you from the bondage. Tam cha buddhim stauti prarochan artham buddhya yaya yoga vishayaya yuktaha. He partha, karma bandham karma eva dharma adharma akhya bandhaha. Karma eva dharma adharma akhya bandhaha. Tam prahasyasi. Ishvara prasada nimitta jnana prapya eva iti abhiprayaha. So Shankaracharya is giving his intention here. And this understanding is praised. Tam cha buddhim stauti. Stauti means praising. For the sake of encouragement. Prarochan artham. Buddhya yaya yoga vishaya yukta. He partha. O partha, endowed with this understanding which has been praised in the beginning, which belongs to the domain of yoga, you will abandon the bondage of action, and that bondage which is action itself. That is, the bondage is nothing but the action itself, known as dharma and adharma. This is to say, though the attainment of knowledge, through the attainment of the knowledge, arising solely from the grace of Ishvara, is the intention. So Shankaracharya also is saying that the grace of Ishvara has to fall upon us to have the equanimity to look at dharma and adharma, sukha dukkha, labha alabha, jaya ajaya, etc. That has to come from the grace of God. Now the opening verse of Avadhuta Gita is also talking the same. Ishvara prasadena eva manava advaita chintanam. This advaita thoughts in the human beings can happen only by the grace of God. So if you are all listening, you are all blessed. Because you are able to listen and think, do the Shravana Manana Nididhyasana Advaitic aspect, which will release you from the bondage of the world, daily, day-to-day life and the problems which we are seeing. This passage is a structural and doctrinally decisive, where Shankaracharya locks in the distinction between jnana and karma, while showing the ordered relationship. There is an order, there is a relationship, but they are parvatavat akampya. Like two mountains, they cannot be merged together. At least two rivers can merge together to become one river. But in the case of mountains, that can never be done. So jnana is a mountain, karma is another mountain, and they will be never merged together. Their karma, jnana, samuchaya cannot happen. This was very clearly mentioned when we did the Ishavasya Upanishad. So what has been taught so far as a jnana, Sankhya Yoga, Jnana Yoga? Shankara is unambiguous in this. He says that Sankhya here does not mean a dualist system. It means Atma, Anatma, Viveka and discrimination of Atma and Anatma to arrive at the reality. This buddhi is sakshat, directly liberating, and it removes shoka moha, the grief and delusion, which in themselves are the root cause for samsara. Thus, knowledge is not a preparatory here, it is the terminal knowledge. Jnanat evatu kaivalya. Jnanena sadrisham pavitramiha na vidyate. Krishna says that there is nothing more purer than jnana. Then why is yoga being introduced now, karma yoga? So Shankara is very careful not to confuse the two levels. Yoga is not an alternative to truth. It's an upaya or a means for those who are not fit for jnana directly. Because yoga consists of nisangata. When you are asked to have an equanimity or to the fruits of action, like sukha, dukkha, labha, alabha, jaya, jaya, you will have a nisangata towards the fruits of action, not to the action itself. Because when you are equanimous to the fruits of action, the action will not be uninteresting. Because you are knowing the reason why the action is important. That action is important for mental purity as long as you are not having the results as shoka and moha. Where does shoka and moha come? If you have the pair of opposites as the results of the action. So when you divide of these dualities of the results, you are in action with nisangata. The sangata or the attachment in the action should not be for the result of the action, but for the action itself. Because that is your part of life. Na kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtatya karamurte. In the third chapter, Krishna will say that. Not even for an iota of second can anyone remain inactive. Even mental, manasa vacha karmana. By the mind, by the word and by the actions, we are engaged in living all the time of our waking. So we will develop a nisangata if we know the true picture of action. And when we apply equanimity to the fruits of action. And the yoga, karma yoga consists in dvandva praharana. relinquishing the pleasure plane polarity, the good and the bad, the desired and the undesired, all sorts of polarity, dvandva. Praharana means relinquishing them. Then Ishvara Aradhana, Karma Yoga teaches that Mayarpida Manobuddhi, as a dedication unto me, Krishna says that. That is the worship, the action as a means or action itself as a worship. That is the time when the karma becomes karma yoga. Not as an end, but as a purification and orientation towards receiving the knowledge. A word which is there in Shankaracharya's commentary is Anantaram eva uchyamanam. What does it mean? It's a clear pedagogical statement where Shankaracharya flags what comes next. What are they? One is the teaching of yoga buddhi while in action, and should not be mixed with Sankhya yoga, not be confused with the absolute knowledge, anything to do with the karma yoga. But subordinate and instrumental actions prepares the doer for receiving the knowledge. And when he has made this pedagogical statement, Anantaram eva uchyamanam, he is clearly preventing the classic confusion which is there in many of the commentaries and many of the teachers and many of the masters, that whether Gita is teaching a blended path of karma and jnana karma samuchaya. Shankaracharya is crystal clear and absolutely without any doubt. His answer is no. That is not the blended path what Gita is teaching, because Krishna's words themselves are the proof of it. Esha abhide jnana, what I taught you till now, and then what he is going to talk. That means there is difference. And he repeats that with a clear-cut distinction when it comes to the third chapter, Sankhya Yoga for the jnanis and Karma Yoga for the yogis. Sankhya. These two are the distinctions Krishna himself is making. It is not Shankaracharya is telling that. Shankaracharya is seeing that distinction in the words of Krishna, whereas others have mistaken that for jnana karma samuchaya, means a concomitance with knowledge and action. Then why is yoga buddhi praised? Krishna is eulogizing this karma yoga, a yoga buddhi. The praise by Krishna is motivational for Arjuna to get attracted to it, because he is not prepared for a metaphysical knowledge at this moment. But at the same time, when this motivational aspect is being praised, he is also telling that karma binds only when done with desire or claimed as it is mine. But when the same karma done with the yoga buddhi leads to Ishvara prasada and culminates in jnana prapti. That is, when done with desire and the self-egoistic actions, that actions are binding because you are invested in it for the result and for the ownership of it. Not only you are owning the action, you are also expecting the enjoyment out of the action and is claimed as the my result or my fruit of action. But when it is done with the yoga buddhi, that is karma yoga buddhi, the mind is not tainted or contaminated with desire, etc. That leads to the Ishvara Prasada. Now here we have to understand what the word Ishvara Prasada is very clearly. We are not talking about an Ishvara which is outside. We are not talking about a God who is outside, sitting in the heavens with a white beard and a staff in his hand, looking down upon humanity. No, that is not the picture with Bhagavad Gita is talking about. Ayam Atma Gudakesha Sarva Bhutashaya Sthita. Krishna says that I am the Atman. That means the Lord is the Self. In Sarva Bhutashaya Sthita. It is residing inside every creation, whether it is an atomic nature or cosmic nature, doesn't matter. It is there in everything. Sarva Bhuta Ashaya Sthita. It is Ashaya Sthita means Sarva Bhuta. All creations are depending upon them for their existence. The existence of the creation is not because there is creation. No. The existence is borrowed from the existence of the self, which is present in everything. And when that self decides to exit, the existence of the object goes away. Where did it go? It went into the cause from where the effect came, because the effect depends on the existence of the cause for its own existence. The existence of the pot is dependent upon the existence of the mud. In the same fashion or in the same manner, every creation in this world is depending upon the self, the Atma, for its existence. So that prasada or the boon or the benevolence of the Lord is the benevolence of the self within all of them, every creation. And when that benevolence is fructifying, when you complete your actions in the form of karma yoga, that prasada or that benevolence or the boon from the Lord within will make you a apt recipient for the knowledge itself, jnana prapti. Thus, karma does not liberate. The actions by themselves do not liberate us. It is the knowledge what liberates. But what does the karma do? It destroys its own binding power. Its own binding power. The karma has a binding power when you are doing the actions with the desire and the selfish, egoistic activity. But when done without the result orientation and the egoistic action towards and surrendering the action itself to the Lord within ourselves. I am not surrendering my action to a pedestal which is in a temple or a church or someplace. Every action which I am doing, while doing, I am surrendering because it is because of the self within me, I am able to do the action. So, I am not the doer. It is the self which is becoming the power for me to act. So the act also is being surrendered to the self within me. And when I do that way, all my actions is what is Brahmarpanam Brahmahavi Brahmagno Brahmanahudam Brahmaiva Tena Gandhavya Brahma Karma Samadhinaha Brahma Karma Samadhinaha. So that verse which will come in the Gita, 4th chapter, shows that everything is Brahma. Brahma is the Arpanam. Brahma is the ghee. Brahma Agno, Brahma is the Agni, is the fire. Brahmanahudam is oblation done by Brahma. Brahmaiva Tena Gandhavyam. And it is true to Brahma, all these are going and taking refuge at the end. And such a person who knows that, he becomes Brahma Karma Samadhina. He is established in the Brahma through the action of Brahma Karma. This is the releasing factor of the binding force of karma is released by that. This is the precise meaning of karma bandham prahasyasi. And the final Advaitic point which is preserved, Shankaracharya closes by reassuring or reasserting the priority. Bondage is only by knowledge, ends only by knowledge. Bondage ends only by knowledge. Knowledge arises only through Ishvara's grace. And that Ishvara is not outside. Karma Yoga is a necessary purifier, but not a liberator. This keeps the approach Advaita is giving to Gita, honoring the Gita's pedagogical breadth. Keeping this in mind, this verse can be summarized simply that the earlier teaching was Sankhya, which was a direct knowledge of reality. That knowledge alone will remove samskara at its root, samsara at its root. But yoga is now being introduced as a means to attain that knowledge, not directly the knowledge. Karma yoga consists of non-attachment, equality of opposites, and worship. This karma yoga buddhi or yoga buddhi is praised to encourage the practice of karma yogas, which will enable us to get the means to attain knowledge. And through this karma yoga or buddhi yoga, one transcends karmic bondage by knowledge alone. When this karmic bondage is released with the knowledge which comes after a purification of the mind, when surrendering to the Lord every action, that is when the karma prepares and knowledge liberates. So, Gita does not confuse paths. Absolutely not. Never has Gita confused that whether you have to do karma or jnana. Please keep it in mind. There is an order for them. Karma purifies for knowledge, but it is the knowledge that alone frees us from the bondage or the samsara. I'll just stop this class today with this one verse, which is a very important verse. If you know this verse, you know the direction in which you have to take in the Gita understanding. And once you have the correct understanding of the Gita, your actions will be purifier for you to receive the knowledge. Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. Dhanyawad.
Thank you very much, Binduji. I'm opening up the hand raising and the chat. If anyone has questions. Or any follow-up clarifications or discussions, please. Now is the time. We have about half an hour of Binduji's time. Namaste, Shri.
Sorry, I can't find the unmute button in the new layout. No, I found it. Okay. Yeah, namaste, Binduji, namaste, Prakashji. So, Binduji, I think that's very interesting because all I have heard, there are so many public normal things I heard about Karma Yoga as a preparator and even, to some extent. But in the last few classes, what it seems is, actually Karma Yoga is preparing you to do Karma Kanda. Then the Karma Kanda will give you the Chitta Shuddhi, and which will probably lead to... So it is even a preparation, like for example, the Upanishads and all talked about Karma Kanda and Upasana kind of thing. But the concept of Karma Yoga brought in Bhagavad Gita seems to be prior to Karma Kanda itself. Is that correct? Or because I don't know, like, because one point you made is that this sukha dukkhe same krutva is like a something psychological motivation kind of thing to ask Arjuna to actually go and perform the karma, and and the performance of the karma will lead to Chitta Shuddhi, right? Not
performance of the karma with the equanimity.
But equanimity is kind of a psychological motivation, right? It is, I think...
It's not a motivation. Equanimity is the understanding of the action. Understanding that action has result, but the results are always opposite of pairs. It can be win or lose, sukha or dukkha, and labha or alabha. Like that, it is always in pairs. So understanding that actions have got pairs of results, my approach towards is not toward the result, but toward the action itself. Whatever may be the outcome, whether it is positive, negative, doesn't matter. My action will be seen as an action of dedication. That is what is all about. And that is what makes the Chitta Shuddhi. When you come to that, the equanimity will release you from the Shoka and Moha. What creates the Shoka and Moha, or the sorrow and delusion? Sorrow and delusion is basically, the outcome is what is creating the grief and the delusion which we get out of an action. The action by itself is not creating the delusion and grief. It is the outcome which, when we are not seen in equanimity, that gives rise to this pair of opposites. But when we have an equanimity toward the result, there is no place for Shoka and Moha, the grief and delusion, to even spring up. That can happen only when we have equanimity and our action becomes an action of dedication. A dedication is where the dedication is to the prime mover which is within the doer. The prime mover is not the doer nor the enjoyer, but without its presence, the action itself cannot be done. So the Ishvara is within me, and to that Ishvara, all my actions are being served. Kayena vacha manasendriyarva buddhyatmana va prakriti swabhava karomi yadyat sakalam parasmai narayana yeti samarpayami. We don't we stand this verse, I think, for the benefit of those who are not familiar with this verse. I'll tell you. Kayena vacha. Kayena means by body. Vacha means by word. Manasa indriyerva, by the mind or the sense organs. Kayena vacha manasendriyerva. Buddhi atmana va prakrite swabhava. Buddhi atmana, by the nature of the buddhi. The atma is not the self. Buddhi atmana is the one word. That is the swabhava. Prakrite swabhava, by the nature of with which I am born with. Karomi yadyat, whatever I do. Karomi, aham karomi, whatever I do. Yadyat, whatever it is. Sakalam, entirely. Parasmai Narayana yeti samarpayami. I am surrendering this to Narayana within me. Is the sloka what is now telling. And we chant this every day. I don't know how many times. At least I do that many times. And that is the last prayer I do before I go to sleep. Because whatever action has been done, I am surrendering to the Lord within myself before I hit the bed for my deep sleep travel. It is inevitable for me. I can't sleep. I can sleep with this thing. And morning when I wake up first thing after doing the morning prayer, I do this, that whatever I am going to do this day, today, is also I am going to surrender into you, O my Lord. That with that prayer, I engage in my waker life. Whatever is done by the waker is also surrendered there. So, with all these in mind, when we are doing this equanimity of action, it will not bind us. That is why karma prepares us Chitta-Yuddhi only if you do it in a way which Krishna is going to advise us in 3rd and 4th chapter. Not by action by itself.
Okay. So, okay, but in this one more doubt I have is, see, there is outcome that is after a performance of a karma. But the Vishada of Arjuna is not really at the level of outcome, right? Like outcome is maybe 18 days later. This is the first day of war. Here he is imagining the outcomes, right? So there is this prescription seems to be only for people who are imagining the outcomes and staying away from the action, right? That is the whole Arjuna dropped his bow and arrows and because he's imagining so many outcomes. But whereas the actual outcome after 18 days, whatever it is, it will happen, right? So in that case, this is not so that kind of thing. This is not really an outcome, right? So already this is just asking. It's a motivation for performance of the that yuddha or something, right? Or is it?
That's right. Krishna is motivating Arjuna to the yuddha, for the war. But Arjuna's melancholy or despondency has come from expecting a result which will happen, because he had the confidence that he will win the war. That is why he is asking, let me see who are all ready to fight with me. And when he saw his grandsire and the teacher and the others, that is the time he knew that with him as an enemy to fight, the chances that these people will not survive. Maybe the grandsire will survive because he is the one who has equal or more power than Arjuna. But he alone cannot win the war, whereas Arjuna alone can win the war. That is why that story which was told in the last class, that where he went to under the bottom of the ocean to take on the 10 million asuras or demons. That all those things are only, even though known to him, he has confidence in that himself, but he was worried about the outcome. That made him melancholic and despondent. Now Krishna has to make him shake away that. So one who is worried about the outcome, he has to be taught that the outcome is not in your hands. What is in your hands is the action itself. If you are not doing your action, you are not going to, not only that you are deviating from doing your duty, but you are also preconditioning the outcome of the war by allowing the opposition to win and walk away without even fighting one arrow. So that should not happen. So with this in mind, when Krishna is saying that, we have to keep it in mind that Krishna's motivation is only to make Arjuna fight the war. Arjuna doesn't know what is the outcome. As you rightly said, it can come after the 18th day only. But he knows for sure that the chances of his victory is more than the victory of the Kauravas. That he was confident about himself. Therefore, he anticipated the outcome. And anticipating the outcome, he became sorrow. Because he is going to kill his cousins and his teachers, etc.
Yeah. Thank you, Binduji.
Thank you, Shri. Namaste, Venkat.
This is a pretty solid verse to contemplate upon. A couple of things to sort of get the terminology right. That Esha te bihita sankhye.
Esha te abhihita sankhye.
Abhihita sankhye. Either Sankhya and Buddhi Yoga. There are two words used, right, Brother? Sankhya and Buddhi Yoga. Is Bhagavad Gita also called as Buddhi Yoga? Also, right, Brother?
Buddhi Yoga here is talking about the Karma Yoga.
Okay, it is pointing to Karma Yoga. Because this
yes.
Buddhi is used many ways, right? Buddhi, Dharma Buddhi, Yoga Buddhi.
Yes.
And Sankhya as a, version of Buddhi also, right, Madhuji?
Sankhya is, there the difference is that the knowledge of reality doesn't depend upon the Buddhi or the intellect. The knowledge of the reality is independent of the intellect. It is right. What it is. Whereas in all other, the intellect is the one which can, influence the Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga or Samadhi Yoga, all those things. Intellectually, we can influence it or get the, variations of it. If they are all variables per se, depending upon the intellect of the each one. Otherwise, everybody should be equal in bhakti, everybody should be equal in yoga, everybody should be equal in karma. That is not happening.
So the Nishchayatmaka Buddhi
yes.
is in the work anyway, in any case.
Yes.
Even in Dharma Buddhi, Dharma Viveka, the Nishchayatmaka Buddhi works there too.
Right.
In yoga also, the same Nishchayatmaka Buddhi will work to either to attempt or, come out. Even if you get into Samadhi, the Buddhi will decide to let go. And hence Samadhi can happen. So is the Dharma selection. In Gnana also, the Nitya Viveka is again performed by the Buddhi using the Sankhya framework. So Buddhi is common in all of this. Only difference is where it is in this verse that the Ishvara, the grace of Ishvara will dawn upon the one whose Chitta Shuddhi happened through yoga, Karma Yoga, hence allowing the Gnana to arise. with the grace of Ishvara. That is the Ishvara in the form of Guru. That's the way to take it.
It is slightly confusing in the sense that clear-cut definitions are being given by Krishna towards knowledge or the Paramarthika truth and the other rest of them. So he is starting with the Karma Yoga first. Then he will go to the other yogas later. So, what way are you saying that, your assumption?
So, because Buddha yukto yaya partha karma buddham prahasyasi.
Yes.
Buddha yukto, and the one who is with that right mind,
Right.
then there is a way you can progress from, whatever the karma, the through Ishvara Prasada, the Gnana will eventually happen.
Right. See, you should understand that karma bandham prahasyasi. What is that? That when you do the action with the buddhi yoga or the applying your intellect in the right way, which otherwise would have been a bondage because of the expectation for the result and the polarities of the result of the karma, you will be either happy or sorrow. And that happiness and sorrow or delusion will bind you into the samsara into the worldly actions again and again. How will you be freed from the bonding effect of an action? Can happen only when you apply your intellect in the action with an equanimity where you are treating all the polarities, whatever it is, as the results of the action as unbinding to you because you are not worried about the polarities. Samikritva, when he said that equanimity of the results, when you look at it, that is the time when the bondage, the action will not be binding you. Because you are not worried about whether it's a win or loss, or gain or loss, or victory or defeat, etc. So when you are not worried about that aspect, the action will become a purifier because actions, when done, when you are not receiving the fruits of action from your desire point of view, the actions themselves will be self-annihilating or self-destroying nature. That it will not be a continuity. What happens is that if you are driven by a result-oriented thing, your actions further will be based on your experience of what way when you did, you got a favorable result. What way when you did, it was an unfavorable result. That will prompt you to do more in the favorable way. That will engage you in more and more in the actions. That way you will become a cycle of birth and death and birth and death. But when you are in equanimity, when you are not accepting the results of the action, the actions by themselves will be self-annihilating nature. And that will make you less of a person indulged in the worldly activities, which is the Buddhitta Shuddhi we are talking about, where you will be more open to knowledge. But how will you do the action when you know that there is as Srini was telling, 18th day, the result is going to come, whatever it is. But how will you do the action? That is where the surrendering that action unto the Lord within myself. When I do that, that action is not going to bind me, or I need not be worried about the outcome. because I surrendered the action itself to the Lord within, and therefore the results are of not mine at all. That way, when you take it, your actions, then you are more liberating yourself from the bondage of action.
It's clear, Banuji. I think the same language we are using, the buddhi, the dharma buddhi, or the one who's doing the action for the sake of action with equanimity, not focusing on the outcome, has no binding on the action, leading to chitta shuddhi. This will ease the, placeholder. The surrendering again, the buddhi comes. Because the surrender is, there's nobody to surrender. Right, Binduji?
Yeah.
So either you surrender, it doesn't surrender because the buddhi is surrendering to the self, higher self. Then there is no surrender, question of surrender. I think this is clear, Binduji. I think this explains it. The grace of Ishvara is the only place we had, questions there. The grace of Ishvara can be in any form. It may be a guru, it can be within, it can be anything.
That's right.
Okay, I think this is clear, Mataji.
Thank you, Venkat. Namaste, SK.
Yeah. Hi, Binduji. Hi, everybody. Binduji, so this question is about jnana karma samuchaya. So one thing is like if jnana is only determined by knowledge, pure knowledge, and which removes ignorance, and karma is neither necessary nor sufficient, right? Like that is the correct understanding, right, Binduji?
No. Jnana is vastu tantra, means it has nothing to do with karma, in the sense that you know a thing by itself without an action producing a result type of an activity. Knowledge is the nature of exposing the object or the subject or the content of the matter as it is, whatever it is. Whereas actions are always driven towards a outcome of a creation, outcome which depends upon the action. Only when the action is done, the result is seen. Therefore, the action by itself is not capable of showing a fire. Now, for example, we say fire, knowing fire is a knowledge. Because fire is fire. Every time we see the fire is the fire. There is no activity required for the fire to be known as fire. To produce fire, you may have activity. But to know fire as fire, there is no action required for it. But whereas actions, unless it is done, the result of the outcome of the action will never be seen. So, the actions are directed towards what is called kartratranda. It depends upon the doer. And what way the doer will approach the action, and the action completed will result in either of the polarities of the result, positive result or negative result. So what happens is that the actions and the outcome depends upon the doer of the action. That is where Krishna says that the doer of the action should be equanimous, in the sense he should not be worried about the outcome, the polarities of outcome, positive or negative, but he should be dedicated, action should be dedicated to the higher goal. When you surrender that to a higher goal, you are not worried about the outcome, because the action was not done for the outcome. That is how you differentiate between the action and there is no karma samuchaya there. Jnana karma samuchaya.
So if like the objective is moksha sadhana, Binduji, like for the sadhak, it is not neither necessary nor sufficient to do the karma. Like, be it
No.
the karma kanda or
If the sadhak is a well prepared student, or his is in antakarana is shuddhi or chitta shuddhi is there, then karma is not required. You are right.
yeah. But then see that's what I was like trying to understand. So would Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana count as like karma?
No,
Right? Like
that is not karma. That is a sadhana. Sadhana is not a karma.
okay. Got it, Bindu. Yeah.
Thank you, SP. Prakash, can we stop?
Sure, Binduji. So, yes, thank you everyone for, especially Srinivas, Venkatji, SK, for coming up and asking questions and digging deeper into that. And I don't know, Binduji, have you been keeping up with the PhD Dhatu commentary he left?
Yeah.
But he's made
He left,
series.
I know.
Yeah.
Series of comments in the chat. I saw that. I read not all of them. I was reading in between as they were appearing.
Okay. We can address that
He
later.
he seems to be a person knowing this aspect, but more towards the yogic approach.
Okay.
Purva Mimamsi.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
So thank you very much for everyone for coming in the audience and for attending this session. And special thank you to Binduji, as usual, for the hour-long deep manana and the follow-up clarifications about the questions. We will reconvene again tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. IST for the class number 24. Over to you, Binduji. Thank you.
Thank you, Prakash, Srini, Venkat, SK, and all of you for listening to me today. We will continue the next verse tomorrow. Tomorrow and day after tomorrow, we will have the discussions. And Friday, God willing, we'll see the discussions on any of these topics which is still not got enough time to discuss with. Hari Om. Good night.
Good night.